ahead and hit record. I was I can't even remember what I was saying. I had left a voice message a while ago and I was going to tell you about something. It was something about a society I had studied. And I cannot remember which society it was. It was fascinating and I just remember how, oh yeah, I remember it was in Canada. This culture I found. I have no idea what culture this is. It's Northern Canada and they are completely removed from society. And their culture is it's a man woman and they have a single child. They said in the documentary their children don't cry. And I'm still thinking about that. I'm like, what do you mean their children don't cry? Why? How? And they wander from all day. They walk all day. And at the end of the day, they stop and they build a shelter with trees right there, and then they cook, they sleep. The next day they wake up, they tear down the shelter, they do not take it with them. They leave it there, and then they walk to the next location. There's no marker, they just wander. And they had a mule or a donkey. They had a handful of tools, everything that could sit on the donkey and nothing else. At about 17, they leave the home and they go into modern culture. They attend our universities, they learn, but most of them return. And then they go back and they find a partner and they continue this. And this is a culture that's been doing this for hundreds of years. I have got to look up their name. I was fascinated by it. I am so fascinated by this. This is a Canadian culture unheard of at the northern area of Canada. And they do this in winter, all seasons. Fascinating. They're not Canadian and they're not any of the Native American tribes. They are this pocket of just behavior. So I've got to track them down to figure out what their name is so I can study more. But that was one of the most fascinating cultures I'd ever seen. I wanted so much more information on them. So how have you been in the last few days since we
Interesting. I would also wish to get more information on the same. So the very moment you are fed up, the very moment you get the whole information, then kindly share it with
Oh
me
yeah.
so that I would
Yeah,
love
yeah, I will definitely share it. Yeah, that is, I love studying. I'm at that point where it's like, now let's look at the societal structure of culture and see where humanity separates from culture. And this is one of my favorite things right now. This is my passion is culture's over here, but humanity is over here. And this is where humanity is the skeletal frame, but culture is that that spice that goes on top of it to decorate it. It's fascinating to me.
Yes, that is great. I've been well. I've been doing well. Just running up and down. You know, there are a lot of things we are doing on the ground. We are engaging people, and also we are all planning for our next meeting, which should be this week.
Okay.
So you know, a lot of things are being done,
Mhm.
and as I told you last week, we are at the brink of finalizing anything that pertains our side.
Yeah.
The, I've shared with you all the plans, and we have been conversing all from morning up to now. So we have the clear information of which
Mhm.
there is no need. We are recording, and this is for learning purposes. So our own affairs we shall discuss behind the tent. That is how they say in Africa. Can we speak behind the tent? You know
Behind
the
the
tent?
tent. All right. Behind the tent. Okay.
So last week in our meeting, we were talking about a number of things that
Mhm.
some of them I've shared with you, and we got your input, the questions that arose. And
Mhm.
I don't know whether you can recall that we did not finish.
Yeah,
the
I have to download that and then upload it to YouTube and then I'll be able to share it. Well, I'll be doing that today. So, and then I'll do that also with this video. But yes, we left off, I think, at the starting of the questions regarding mental health.
Yes, yes, that is where we supposed to resume.
Mhm.
So first thing first, warm up question. When did you last sing to yourself?
Oh, when did I last sing to myself? Was it today or yesterday? One of those 2 days. I'm always singing, always, always.
All right. Yesterday. That is to yourself
Oh
and to
yeah,
someone.
to someone. I think it was you. It was either you or it was one of my friends. Somebody had said something. Oh yeah, I remember. Someone called me Annie, so I broke off into a musical song. Don't call me Annie. And yeah, so it was probably 3 days ago that I did that.
Okay, 3 days ago. And do you have any secret hunch about how you will die?
I don't I don't do that. I am going to live forever or die trying.
There is one of the units that we did in the university. It is called Death and Dying. I want you to do research on the course. Death
Oh,
and Dying.
sure. It's so I'm very, this is where manifestation comes in, and I have to ask the philosophical question, are we aging because everyone thinks we're supposed to age? Are we getting old because we say things like, oh, I'm getting old, when in fact you're just not exercising? Which leads to the question, are we supposed to die? Now, scientists say no. The fact that we're dying is actually not biologically accurate. There is substantial evidence of this in science. And that's one of the reasons why scientists are pursuing immortality like they are, is because it's not natural to die. Our bodies are doing everything to restore themselves. The question is, why is our body deteriorating and breaking down? I believe it's because of mental health. You fix mental health and you won't die. So I think
That's correct.
that is actually a symptom of prolonged mental health, mental illness. I believe that death is a symptom of mental illness. So I don't believe I'm going to die, and that's my agenda. Now, I also read an article recently that if you can stay alive for the next 5 years, you are going to be alive for a long time, because in 5 years they hypothesize that we are going to reach a break in society. Now, flipping this over with Dr. Daniel's research, yes, and Community Gaia is going to be one of the leading laboratories with that front. So, death, let's start talking like we're going to be immortal, guys. Let's start doing that. Stop manifesting our own deaths.
Yes, yes, yes. I love that.
Yes, we're all going to live forever.
I'm not dying. I will live
No
forever.
dying. There's no death. So yes, I will teach a course on death. It will be called the anti-death. Yes, I will do that.
I will attend that class every day.
It'll be great. Okay, today I'm going to teach you how not to die. First, stop saying things that bring it out.
Okay, next, name 3 things you and your partner appear to have in common.
Wisdom. We're both grammar Nazis. We are
Wisdom,
both playful.
playful.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he plays with me.
All right,
That's like,
that's
man,
great.
you can't be my friend if you don't play with me. You can't be anything if you don't play with me. Like, playing is like, because I want to play with trucks and I want to play Barbies and yeah, play is important.
That's fantastic. Fantastic. What do you feel most grateful for in your life?
This, this, this,
The study we are doing or the
everything,
project?
everything. The fact that I'm waking up living my philanthropic dream. This,
Living
fact that I get to wake up every morning and talk to people about this project, that I get to lead it, that I get to design it, that I get to help people build it, that I get to expand all of this. It is, there are things I am doing today that, and I was just thinking about this morning. I woke up this morning and I thought, I cannot believe this is my life. This is the best. I dreamed here and I'm living here. It's surpassed any of my dreams, and I am grateful, so grateful that
That's good.
I get to live this.
That's good. That's great. And I'm also very much grateful. That is what I'm very grateful of. In my life, when I was just a small boy, I see some of the challenges my mom was experiencing, and there was nobody who could help her because she was a total orphan. And so she had a lot of mental issues, and after which she died. And so I was saying that one day when I shall grow up, I'll go to university and do a particular course that will help me to be able to help people. And so even me, I'm living my dream. This has been my dream since I was a small boy. I know I'm still young, but this is what I've been living to achieve. And I can see it, it is coming to pass. It is coming to pass last week. When we gathered that number of people, I was very excited and I said, my eyes were open and I said, this is what I've been wishing that I do. It is coming to pass and it came to pass.
Yeah.
So I'm very super excited.
Yeah,
So when you
it's the same thing. I had a vision this morning. I was laying in bed and I was thinking about it. I can see Community Gaia being complete. I can see the first building. I can see the opening day of it. And I just went, I can see it. And it's just, it's beyond anything I ever could have imagined. And that's where it's like, this is going to become the norm. It's where's your dream? Because we're going to get you to the dream. We're going to get you to the dream, and then you're going to realize the world beyond your dream. That's we're going to do that. Beyond world beyond your dream. Beyond
yes,
dream. Yeah. And this is what I see is this whole unit is beyond dreams. And that's it. That is it right there. And there's no reason why everybody can't be there. There's no reason. And we're going to live forever. So we're going to have a lot of time on our hands. So we got to get there.
dreams are too big that we cannot die and live them. We must
Exactly.
we
Exactly.
must fulfill them. We
Yeah.
have to fulfill them to
And
the
I
very
think
last.
that's what kills us is not living the dreams. I think not living our dreams is what kills us. I think living our dreams is what will be a core chunk of how we become immortal. And I truly believe that dreams are our life source. I'm going to write that down. Dreams are our life source. They truly are. And it's you don't have your dream and it is the death of us. It's that's what that is. That is what is inside of me. If I were to name my soul, it would be dream. I knew I would find it. It is a dream. That is what is inside of me. I don't believe in the word soul. I don't like it. And I'm like, no, what did the Greeks call it? And I have not been able to find a word for this. It's dream. I'm looking up the etymology for the word dream. I feel better now.
So last week we discussed a number of issues, and I now want to begin from where we stopped last week.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about the mental health, and this was moderated by one of the teachers. His name is Chris. Chris is a psychologist. So she's the one who took us through this, and I was as well taking some notes. And so we were talking about mental health, especially in our country, in Kenya. And as professionals who were present, there was a question that was asked to the audience on the types of mental health. And as professionals, these are the answers that came forth. Number one type of mental health in Kenya is mood disorder. And number two, anxiety disorder. And number three, personality disorder. And number four, psychotic disorder, that is schizophrenia. And
Oh,
so
okay. Yeah.
those are the types of mental health that came forth in our meeting.
What
And
was
so
the
we were
first one? I missed the first one. What was it?
mood disorder,
Mood. Okay.
depression, or bipolar.
Okay.
They go hand in hand. Have you captured all of them? Mood disorder, in
Yeah, I've
bracket.
got all of these. Yeah, I have all these. I know exactly what all of them are.
So the question that arose, because we were discussing kind of using a case study of a certain lady that committed suicide in the line of puberty shame. That is, during her menses, they just graduated from class 5 to grade 6. So while they were in grade 6, she experienced menses for the very first time. They were not taught. She was not aware of what is happening. The rest of the girls in the classroom also were not aware. And unfortunately, they realized that the desk where the lady was sitting, the girl was sitting, was full of blood. And so they began to like laugh at her. And you know, while I was young at that age, I don't know what is wrong with children being laughed at. A child being laughed at, to them, it is something that they don't like.
Oh
Like
no,
a
no,
child
no, yeah, yeah. It's
having something like, for example, my cloth is torn, maybe at the back, very common in Africa. You are walking and your trouser is torn, and then somebody is saying that, look at that trouser, it is very old. To a child, that one they don't like. So I'll need your explanation of why is it that they don't like it when they're like being spotted out as having a challenge.
yeah, it's
So
belonging.
let me just finish, then you will combine both of them.
Sure,
So this
absolutely.
so this girl, after realizing that the most of the classmates were taking advantage of her situation, laughing at her, she was so much embarrassed that she went out like crying outside. And after some times, they realized that she just hanged herself in a tree in the school compound because of this menses, this monthly period shame that was subjected to her by the fellow classmates. So my question is this: is suicide a mental, comes as a result of mental disorder, as a mental health? Was she disturbed mentally? I believe answer is yes. And out of this that we have listed, types of mental disorder, which one took center stage in that case? I don't know whether it made sense.
It does make sense. Yeah. You're asking a really big question. So I'm just going to tell you what I have.
All right.
I started struggling with suicide when I was 15. And I had been struggling with suicide all of my life after that point. I reached a point in 2023 where the suicide finally stopped. And then it came back. And I thought, why would it come back? I didn't have any mental illness. And I'm going to talk to you about the C drop. I don't know if you're familiar with the C drop, but I had quite a bit where I struggled with suicide still, and then it went away again. And I was like, okay, I'm great. And I'm working on the garden, I'm doing my stuff. And then suicide came back. And I went, okay, Occam's razor. Suicide isn't mental illness. It sounds crazy, but let's just go with it. I'm looking at it going, it's completely separate. And I analyzed why, what's going on. And I'm up here, I'm stable. Like it used to be, this was me in my teens. So I thought this was suicide, but then that stopped. Now I'm this. This is it. And it's more like this, actually. It's very slow and it's beautiful. And then when I hit suicide, it's always in a C drop, but it's interesting. It hit when this project was threatened. It hit when I thought I have no out. It hit when I thought hopelessness, hopelessness. It was the only common denominator. No mental illness, hopelessness. What causes hopelessness? Feeling trapped. But it wasn't feeling trapped sometimes. So that wasn't it. Threw that one out. The only common denominator I found was a belief that you had no alternative. Belief that you had no alternative. But that's not also true either, because some people just want the pain to stop. No alternative. Do we have a common denominator yet? I realized that suicide was completely separate from mental illness. And I realized some people have mental illness, but no suicide. Some people have no mental illness, but suicide. Depression, oh yeah, suicide, depression go together like this. But I'm nothing. I cannot live in this society. Let me rephrase it. I cannot live in that society. Anna is not society 1.0 compatible. What are my options? I can't live anywhere on this planet. I can't. So I'm going, what am I going to do about a community? No one can understand my language. I have to build my own community. All right, I have to build my own community. I am not understood by anybody because my science is so advanced. What am I going to do? I'm alone. And then I thought, I'll be a hermit. I don't want to be a hermit. Then I thought, okay, well, how am I going to live? Can I get a job? I can't get a job. I cannot get a job. A job requires a community. So I'm going, well, how am I going to live? How am I going to live? And I thought, I have to come up with a way that I can ethically, that's compatible with me. So this is where all these things came into my mind. And it was an equation. Really, this is what I think society or suicide is. It's an equation. Do I have a hope? Do I have hope? Do I have a community? Do I have a solution? You can't problem solve this problem, suicide. And it's the only problem. Can't solve it, suicide. It is the unsolvable equation of how do I live? How do I live? And if you can't solve this equation, you can't live. Really, I think that's it. I think that is it. Plain and simple. No, this is not a mental illness. This is knowledge. This is pure education. That girl, how do I live? She couldn't find the solution. I would say it's a very simple logical fallacy. Can you solve the equation, how do I live? There it is. I think it's that simple. And it's the only common denominator I was able to find with all of it. So no, I don't think suicide is mental illness. I don't think suicide is at all anything other than, can you solve the question, how do I live? And if you can't solve that, and here's the other thing, the self-preservation system is powerful and strong. So it's your self-preservation system versus your we have to self-destruct. That's really what this is. Suicide is your self-destruct button. And I'm going, and I've asked this question, why would you put a self-destruct button inside of us? Think about it. Cell apoptosis, biology, cell apoptosis. That's why. This is biological. This is logical. It is not mental illness. Not at all. Not at all. I've exhausted this subject so much. This was one of the huge things of I want to solve suicide. Now, this was interesting. The number one reason for suicide in the United States, hopelessness in the psychology system. On the very first day I went to therapy, my therapist told me, you should be dead. Do you want me to go home and kill myself? And I literally, I asked the question, I'm like, what do I do now? Do I go home and die? Because I should be dead. What do I do? And I was just like, so am I supposed to go home and kill myself? What? And she knew I was suicidal ideation at that time. So one of the huge messages I do with suicide is don't give up hope. We have this. Can we try this first? And when I analyzed and did the research on suicide, almost every one of them said, psychologists can't help me. How am I supposed to live? There's no hope. And this is it right here. It is a belief. It's you can't solve the equation. How do I live? So it activates the biology of the self-destruct and it shuts it down.
Enlightened very much. You see, I was kind of confusing the two because I had a perception that for you to commit suicide, it must be that you have a mental health issue. And you have brought it out very clear that what causes mental illness, I mean, what causes suicide is hopelessness, the perception of inability to cope up with what you are going through. And this is why people commit suicide, because you believe that there is no way you can live. This is beyond you. You
Yeah.
can't
And for
solve.
me,
So my
it wasn't about coping. It was about a logical solution. At first, it was how do I survive? And not even there. And then later for me, it was how can I live? And then it became logically, what's the answer? All three of them resulted in me thinking about suicide. I do believe it's logic. I do believe that suicide is 100% logical reasoning. You can't solve the logic equation. So I don't think it's coping. I believe
right.
I believe it is logical deduction that causes it.
And so, in a situation whereby somebody is experiencing hopelessness, like I'm going through a situation, like our case study, the girl, and you realize that she went further and committed suicide.
Mm-hmm.
Most of these people who are committing suicide, you will realize that what they were perceiving as a very hard situation, they are able to sort out that thing and come out of it. Most of them. And don't you think that these people, before they commit suicide, it means that there was a gap. There was no one to speak to them. There was no one to attend to them, to direct them that you know what you are going through, you can finally get out the way
It's
you
problem
always.
solving. It is problem solving. Yeah. There's no problem solving there. It's cognitive behavioral therapy. They're not
So,
disrupting the process to go, maybe I should ask for help. You're absolutely. They're not problem solving.
so
And it's not, you're right. There should be someone there. But if they had problem solving skills, they would have disrupted the thought and gone, maybe I should ask for help. So I want to show you something. This is something that I noticed right away with this girl. No education on the menstrual cycle.
yes.
There is a movie called My Girl that's very popular here in the United States. And in My Girl, her mother passed away when she was an infant. So the girl has no knowledge of her menstrual cycle. When she begins her menses, she screams and says, I'm dying. And the older woman who's there, an employee she lives in a morgue. Her the employee of the morgue steps in and says, how old are you, honey? And she has to calm her down. And then she has to educate her. Their girl is bleeding and there's nothing in her brain saying, I'm going to live. She probably thought she was bleeding to death. Now she's got these children mocking her, laughing. That's humiliation. That's belonging. Two different subjects. So you've got humiliation, you've got belonging being rejected while she thinks she's dying. She may have thought, I'm bleeding to death. You see that amount of blood? Believe me. So many girls go through that. If you don't know, you think you're dying. You think you are internally bleeding. So honestly, hypothesis, we'll never know, of course, but I would not be surprised if she thought, I'm going to die anyway. You had an entire classroom and no one there knew. Who was she gonna? Yeah, I would not be surprised if she thought I'm dying anyway. Now let's throw severe terror of the own body, complete what is going on, I'm dying, and humiliation, rejection. Oh yeah, that's a Oh yeah, I understand that girl very well. Very, very well.
So you mean you just told me something that is has opened my eyes, that I didn't know whether I got you correct, that people should not be dependent on somebody to come in the middle. They should themselves possess the ability to solve the problem.
Yes, yes. And that's what a proper educational system should be doing. That is the number one. The only thing an educational system should be teaching anyone is cognitive behavioral therapy, is how to problem solve. How to problem solve. You have a problem? Learn. You have a problem? Learn. That should be your go-to reaction. You can't do something? Time to learn. I don't understand? Learn. This is something I have said to people many, many times. This is the core of humanity. It is a human being's life trial. It is our life trial. I would write that down. It is the life trial. You fail this, and you're not going to get life. The human being life trial is you got to think through the fear. You fail at this, game over. A bird has to break through their shell if it's the right of life. You have to earn life.
Yes.
For a bird, they have to break through the egg. For a butterfly, they have to break their cocoon. For a human being, you have to think through the fear. You don't think through fear, game over. It is our human life trial. Every psychologist, every teacher, every parent must teach this to children. You think through fear. You don't do this, you don't get to be human. It starts here. And I've done so much research on this gorgeous topic right here. It is the difference between a Neanderthal, an animal, a barbarian. Human right. You want human right? Think through fear. Because if you don't do this, you're an animal. And this is where, when I look at human behavior, it's a divide. It is a schism. You have the humans who pass and the humans who don't. The humans who don't learn this, they stay animals. They stay primitive. I think you had a word for it one day. I think you called it primitive mind, carnal mind,
Carnal mind.
carnal mind. This is the difference between the carnal mind and the human. Is, did they pass the think through fear? If you cannot think through fear, you will never pass the carnal mind. It will never end. Now, you can do this at any age, but the sooner the better. We expedite this lesson. We get this lesson in when they are 1 and 2 years old, when they should get it. Problem solved. Think through the fear. Because I'll tell you, and I want to get the neuroscience on this. We're going to get this is one of the things our lab is going to be doing, is there is a chemical that is released. It is the difference between our hippocampus and our amygdala. It is literally, this is the gorgeous part of this. You have the hippocampus versus the amygdala. And it's the amygdala, the hippocampus. The hippocampus shrinks during trauma, but during education, the hippocampus grows. And when the hippocampus grows, the way it is in the brain, it pushes down on the amygdala and it makes the amygdala smaller. When I was 15, I'm trying to figure out that 15, I remember my brother was beating me. And I switched alters while he was beating me. And when he switched, no pain. I felt nothing because I was my alter. And I suddenly felt great. I had taken about, more than 8 punches to the head, more than another 12 on the ground. And suddenly, no pain. And I was just like, wow, I don't feel anything. I looked up at him and I smiled. And I scared him so much because I smiled at him that he stumbled back terrified of me. And then he went for my sister. That day, I thought through the fear. Before that, I remember it didn't work. There's this point where you have to think through the fear. And when you do, you become a scholar. You problem solve. You analyze. you're immediately cognitive behavioral. You stop, you pause. It's that difference between pause and think. Pause and think. It stops being trial and error. You go from eating the berry, watch the monkey eat the berry, to what if we analyze the berry to figure out what is in the completely different. This is the defining factor that separates carnal mind from humanity. Think through fear. Now, I want to say to parents, how would humanity be different if we all taught this? How would we be different? I like to think that we are on the verge of the new human race. We are. And one of the very first things we need to be teaching for the new human race, the evolved, advanced human society that's coming in, is think through fear. 1 to 3 years old, this needs to be learned, which means we need to be teaching this. You see your child struggling, tell your child, you can do it. Think through the fear. Come on, sweetheart, you can do it. I know you can do it. You think through the fear, and then leave them alone and let them figure it out. Let them figure it out. Give them all the patience to learn so they can think through fear. How would we be different as a society if we taught that to 1, 2, and 3-year-olds? Think through the fear. Pause, slow down. Think through the fear. But the parent has to be able to do it. And I do it intuitively. I have trained this in me so hard. This is what kept me alive, is learning how to pause, step back, think. So when I found cognitive behavioral therapy, I went, oh, so it's math. It's math. It's trial and error of the scientific method. That's where cognitive behavioral therapy comes from. I can't remember the man's name who discovered it. He actually stepped over into mathematics, found trial and error, and went, oh, it's scientific method. And he brought a fraction of scientific method over to psychology. I went, why didn't he just bring all of scientific method over to psychology? So I took all of it and I brought it over. And that's how my work was birthed, was, well, why are you bringing just one part of it? Why aren't you bringing all of scientific method into psychology? So when you merge math into psychology, that's my work. So thinking through fear is everything. It's where humanity begins. It's the doorway of humanity.
Right. That's fantastic. That is great. And that is a very high level of beginning. That is high dimension of beginning. So still speaking on the issues of menses and the monthly periods.
Mm-hmm.
There was some days ago, I don't know, it was 3 days ago, we were talking with you and we were talking about the mood swing during the
Yes.
menses.
Mm-hmm.
And you challenged me that it is not also a mental health. And from the beginning, it is called a mood swing. And also we have a mood disorder. How comes there is disparity and they share the name?
Yeah, this is I'm not going to be nice. This is where I'm going to warn you. I'm not going to be nice. The
Right.
DSM-5 is toilet paper. I have no respect for it, and I will show you why. The solution is here at the origin. When you look this way at a problem, this is the symptoms. This is all the symptom realm. This is the solution. Those are the symptoms. There is a logical generation that occurs from the origin, and then you have these divides. Every one of these divides is a stage. You have a generation. Origin, generation 1, generation 2, generation 3, generation 4, generation 5. This is integrated mathematics. The further away from the origin you get, the higher, more likely you're going to get anomalies, impurities, and falses. As a result, the further away from the origin, the less reliability all of this data is. 100% accurate, 0% truth. This is where psychologists live. This is where the DSM-5 is written. This is why it's toilet paper. There's no truth here. So what ends up happening is the DSM-5, well, no, not currently. And now it's worse. When I was reading the DSM-4, it was around the 36th stage away from the origin. They were already way off the mark. Mathematically, when you get further away from the origin, now it's just nonsense. So where psychology is now with DSM-5 is now nonsense. They are so far removed from the origin. You must study mathematics. You must study anomalies and impurities. This is probability. When you remove yourself from the origin, you get further and further away from the truth. And as a result, you end up picking up data that's not relevant or related. So in mathematics, we evaluate quality for what is related and what is relevant to the origin. And this is done through a quality metric and a truth purity. But the further away from the origin you get, the more likely it's going to be unrelated and irrelevant. But because you're so far away from the origin, you have no way of measuring that. And now you might be seeing something that's completely irrelevant. So they're observing symptoms that actually are completely unrelated. So now they're making deductions based off of data that's not even part of the study because they have lost sight of the origin. They haven't even identified the origin. In mathematics, an origin is pure truth. And there is a common denominator, the origin, that is passed down in succession with each generation line. That common denominator is the truth. And this is done when you are looking at a logical sequence from integration to disintegration. If you are facing toward the origin, you are reverse engineering. This is what I do. This is all I do. Reverse engineer, you are moving closer toward the origin, which means you are sorting out the impurities or the slag, and you are getting closer to the truth. You find more impurities, you throw it out, you get closer to the truth. And you follow the trail of common denominators back to the origin. When you get to the origin, you actually have to go one more behind it. And the pre-origin is what is the catalyst. So the pre-origin is what defines the actual catalyst, because if the pre-origin was done properly, there never would have been a catalyst to begin with. Now, in mathematics, we know this, that the catalyst is invisible. The catalyst is always invisible. This is a very morbid example, but it's the best one there is. In the case of a serial killer, the very first, you have all these bodies that show up, all these crimes. You take all the bodies, you analyze every killing. Each killing has common denominators. It's pure, it's clean, it's literally a perfected kill. That's why they can do it over and over again without being caught. It's a perfected kill. This is so morbid, and I'm sorry, but this is a great example. So they track the bodies down using time, a sequence, which happened first. They find the first body. This is never the first body. This is the first perfected kill. So then they look for the invisible catalyst. They're looking for the first kill that's not perfect, because that first imperfect kill is how they learned how to make a perfect kill. So in the FBI, in forensic psychology, you want to go back to this killing. It's this killing that's going to tell you who did it. Psychology, let's go back further. If they were healthy, they wouldn't have killed anyone to begin with.
Yes.
So this is what happens in symptomology, is someone comes in, I'm mentally ill, I'm scared, it's all my husband's fault. No, it's not. It's your parents' fault. It's your parents' fault. Well, the very first time I was traumatized, your parents' fault. If your parents had done the job, you never would have been traumatized to begin with. Parents' fault. Always. Well, I had a bad teacher. Your parents chose your teacher. Well, I was in this situation because your parents put you there. Well, I found myself in this situation because your parents weren't watching you. Parents' fault. Either they neglected you, or they abused you, or they failed to provide you with proper education. Those are your only three options. all problems here. 100% parents' fault. So all of this other stuff is just consequence. Now we're getting into catalyst and literally consequence sequencing in logic and in mathematics. So when you look at waterfall effect in mathematics and logic, it's illogical to argue about all the ifs and thens because this is all consequential. Had the catalyst done X, none of that would have happened. Now let's take a look at law and criminal forensics again. Had X occurred, none of this would have happened. So when a therapist, and this is something huge that I am a stickler on, when a therapist works with an individual, their number one thing should be stop focusing on symptoms. This is all moot. This is nonsense. This is what I call a red herring. In fact, mathematicians call this a red herring. Because had the catalyst not been what it was, none of this would have happened. Now they want to talk about this because they're being distracted from the real problem. This is amazing psychology right here. I have done this test so many times to the point where it's actually a boring test for me now and I don't do it anymore. I would sit down with someone in my research and I would ask them, tell me about your parents. Oh no, they would immediately defend their parents and then talk about problem. Oh wow, that's what we call a distraction. I went to the next person. Okay, tell me about your parents. No. My mother was a good mother. My mother. Yeah, okay, that's called denial. When they're already defending the mother before I even asked anything else, oh, that's something happened there. And that tells me everything I need to know. There is so much psychological data right there. I did this over 500 times before I got bored with it, so I stopped. But this is a great trial. You ask about the parents, boom, they go to war. Yeah, there's all your problems. Your abuser is your parents. Because if they did it right, you'd be happy, healthy, prosperous, wealthy. Mic drop. So the symptoms. In order to do this right, you have to turn your back to the symptoms and focus on the pre-origin. But it's always going to be the parent. Always the parent. That's how I found the 12 ethics. And I started analyzing early development and the point between where trauma was occurring. And that's where every single time it kept going back to that point. You always focus on the origin. Everything else is a waste of time. That's why people are in therapy for 20 years, because you're chasing red herrings. Don't let them, that's their distraction. That's their comfort zone. They want to hate on their spouse because they can't hate on their parents. And that's really what needs to happen. Of course they want to hate their ex. That's a distraction. They really need to talk about mom and dad.
All right. Everything narrows back to the parents. And that is why it is very significant on the parental lessons.
Yes.
Because everything that we are talking about still narrows to the parents.
Correct.
And this makes it very clear that most of parents have forgotten their roles and they have got engaged in other things, and therefore they are not doing things that they are supposed to do right. Because the first case study that we presented of the lady, that young girl, then if parent would have played their role, and then we would have not been discussing this. And a number of times you have also told me that the psychologists are having a job because of failed parenting.
That's
That
right.
is what you told me sometimes back.
Yeah.
So it is just putting more and more effort is needed in terms of parenting skills.
Yes.
And I don't know what we will need to do something about this in community, Gaia.
I already have it planned.
All right. And you
We are doing
also
a parenting class in addition to. So children comes in, parents have to be there also. You can no longer take your child to therapy. It's you want your child in therapy, you also need to be there too because you're the problem. Bottom line, parents are the problem. Because if parents knew what they were doing, your child wouldn't be mentally ill. You think your child needs, I had my first case study. Oh, we're going to love this one, guys. First case study. Here in America, the United States, they were from Canada. Mother brought her daughter in. Mother told me independently before I met the daughter, this is what she said. Found a suicide note. Daughter was 12, daughter was now 17 years old, now 17. She was telling me I found a suicide note, so I screamed at her. I said, "What? You found a suicide note?" She goes, "Yeah." I screamed at her and said, "How could you do this to me? You found a suicide note from your daughter, and your response was screaming and saying, 'How could you do this to me?'" Immediately I thought, "Oh, well, there's the problem." She said, "I want you to fix my daughter." She said these words to me. I went, "There's problem number two." So when I worked with the child was wonderful. The child was phenomenal. She experienced sexual abuse from her father as early as 3 years old. She was a musician, the daughter was, and she was also LGBTQIA, and her mother was a strict traditional home, intolerant of LGBTQIA. She dressed her daughters both up like dolls and wanted them to be this picturesque feminine model. The girl was very much not feminine. She was very much wanting to embrace her masculine side. The masculine side in the daughter was not tolerated. Everything this girl did was 100% micromanaged by the mother who was recreating her childhood inside of her daughter. So her daughter was a living mini version of her mother, expected to live out mother's dreams. Mother was definite, severe, grandiose narcissism. I have never seen such horrific parenting abuse in person. This is how the relationship went. I would do a session with the child. The mother would then text the child, and the girl was away in college. So this is all from mom living in Canada, child living in North Carolina. And the mother would text her and micromanage her and say, "I want you to sing this for me. I want you to compose this musical composition for me." And the girl would go into hyperventilating and panic. Well, if I don't literally, if I don't compose this musical composition for my mother, she had massive flop where if her mother messaged, she would shut down. The mother would text me, message me, very kind. "So how's she doing? I cannot talk to you about our situation here. That's private." The girl, while I was working with her, grew to 18 years old. So when that happened, I cut the mother off completely. It happened almost like a month into our sessions. So I'm like, "She's an adult. I cannot share that information with you." So then the mother started texting the child. "You have to share this information with me. I want to know how my money's working." And the girl would go into a full panic. The mother puppeted her daughter while her daughter was trying to get therapy. And it was well, "I expect you to be better by this." She said this, "I expect you to be better by X. I don't want to spend more money on you." It got to the point where I was making phenomenal headway with this woman, the 18-year-old. Phenomenal headway. She embraced her LGBTQIA. There was one day she went, "I cut my hair. I finally have my hair my way." She had this gorgeous short hair bob. She got a tattoo. She was thrilled. She was also hanging around very, very toxic people at school. So we went over the circle of trust. We did that. Very fantastic headway. She was blossoming into her true identity self. I watched her dreams and identity just explode. She was a musician because her mother wanted her to be a musician. She wanted to actually be a psychologist. It got to the point where as soon as she started, and this is control, this is that narcissist control, the more the child got free, the more the mother felt the control lost, and so the mother came down. And finally, the mother came back. The girl at one point rose up and said, "Back off. This is my boundary. No, you do this again." It got to the point where the mother threatened to take the child's animal, pet away, her cat. And then it imploded because the mother finally lost all control. And that's when the mother came back. It is not possible to work on a child without the parent being in therapy. It's not. It is not. It is useless. You have a child, a parent who comes in and says, work on my child. No, they're not the problem. The parent's the problem. You work on the parent only, and the children will work out just fine. That's what my research discovered was if I just work on the mother, then everything will fall into place. In fact, I did this with me. I was mentally ill. I knew it. I worked on myself. I didn't work on my children. I worked on me. When I worked on me, I watched my children change. I worked on me more. I watched my children change. I started using, okay, this is where I really got like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and tweak my education over here. I'm going to tweak my brain over here. What happens if I change my parenting this way? So I started doing all these parenting exercises on myself, and I watched how it changed my children's behavior. I wanted my children total psychological manipulation. I'm going to confess to that right away. I wanted my children to read more. I read more. I wanted my children to learn. I learned. I just became the role model. I role modeled everything I wanted my children to do. That's it. That is
Yes,
it.
just
Parents
being
are
around.
everything.
So it is very, very true that the very moment the parent is sorted out, the children obviously will be sorted out.
Yeah, 100%. And I'll tell you, that is more powerful than anything else. That was the most powerful therapy I could have given my children, was fixing me. It was extraordinary to witness. Extraordinary. When I realized the mimic mirror repetition response with role modeling and our natural learning system, I went, logical deduction, I change me and become who I want to become, which is free, open-minded, independent. My children will become free, open-minded, independent. And it did. My children did things that blew my mind away, that completely blew my mind away. Things I had no idea they were. I knew they could do it, but it was way above any expectations. It was extraordinary. And I'm like, wow, that is how powerful the parent is. Now we're getting into the psychology of people going, I'm not worthy. I'm not that powerful. You put that mentality into a parent, and that's the problem right there. You've got people who think they have no self-worth being parents. So now they're making bad decisions thinking, well, I'm useless. I'm nobody. It doesn't matter. You change that and it changes the children. You should never put children in therapy. They don't need it. You just need to change the parents. The parents are the problem. We have this tiptoe eggshell walking, oh, let's be kind to mothers. I have a lot to
Because
say.
there was a time I was counseling, there was this girl and the brother. They are siblings, and there was incidents of incest. And so this case was so serious.
Yeah, okay, you're going to work with the children there. Yeah, that you're going to work with the children, yeah.
So that it is very rampant, mostly in the villages.
Yeah.
So in this regard, how should the parent come in? Because children,
were they orphans, or was it or were the parents there?
they are with the parents at home.
Okay. So there's two sides to this. I have to ask a couple questions first. The other side of the question I'm going to ask is, was it consensual or non-consensual?
It was consensual. Both of them agreed because there was no complaint raised. It was later realized that the girl was expectant, and the one who was responsible was the brother. And you know, in Africa, when a girl conceives out of a wedlock, you will be beaten by your parents until you confess the one who is responsible. And to our surprise, the brother was responsible. She never complained. None of them raised complaint. So this made us believe that they both agreed.
I am studying the psychology of incest a lot right now. I had two siblings where she was sexually engaged with her brother, consensual. And I spent a lot of time talking with her. I also spoke to a man who was having sex with his mother, consensual, both adults.
Mother.
Oh yeah. Oh, I'll tell you, my sex research is very interesting. When you are a BDSM mistress, people will tell you everything.
And
And
there's something on that I've remembered. You are
uh-huh.
speaking to me about men's sexuality. This is a very detailed conversation we started in our messages. And I just wanted you to like we spend the next day,
Uh,
probably
oh yes,
tomorrow. I
yes,
want us
yes.
to speak about this because when we shall be meeting, I will see if I can incorporate it
Oh,
within
absolutely.
our
Oh yeah. And
system.
I'll tell you, this is where this is my happy place. I love talking about human sexuality. It's the most fascinating subject.
Yes,
Absolutely. Oh
yes,
yeah.
and we are talking about the facility for men. We don't need to build a facility for men. We are only going to organize their meetings in a particular facility. Once we have our
I see.
office, we are going to involve them. We train them in our office, then they go back to where they are coming from. We don't
Yeah.
need to work. We don't need to keep them anywhere.
Yeah. Yes.
So
Yeah. No,
this one was
that's
public.
fantastic. Yeah, that works.
All right, go ahead.
All right. So yeah, I have interviewed everything. Now I have to clarify. He was close to 30s before they did this. He was not a child. Okay, this is not pedophilia. I did that research also. All right, I'm just going to go all out here. I knew this was going to come up at some point, and I'm like, yeah, this is going to be fun. I am
Mhm.
significantly bringing into question whether or not incest is actually unethical. I had another case. In fact, this was actually on a TikTok video where this girl is dating her brother. Her parents know about it. They don't like it. They don't approve. But she's like, I date my brother. They're not sexually active. They're on YouTube. They publicize it. I sat there and I watched it. Now, I've done so much history on ancient Greek, ancient Rome, ancient Ireland. That was normal. In fact, in ancient Ireland, in an Irish myth, the reason why the Vanir and Asir war took place, according to mythology, is because one part of the gods wanted no incest and the other group wanted incest. That's the cause of the war. Zeus married his sister Hera. Incest is part of everything human that I have seen. Animals do it. I had a dog that would have sexual relations with its puppy. I mean, it was an adult puppy, but so personally, it makes me queasy myself. I'm not for it for me. But when I was doing this research, I got to a point where I really had to question what is the ethical problem? Now, consent here, non-consent, very clearly a problem. That's not what we're talking about. I am not sure if I would call incest mental illness. I need more data. When I talked to the man who was having sex with his mother, she they walked through the stages of intimacy. They went through the stages of intimacy. He was a successful, grown adult man. He wasn't lonely. He was not lonely. In fact, we met on a dating site. So I decided not to date him. But it was, he opened up to me and he shared this part of his life. And I was like, huh. I said, would you be open to some questions? And he was like, oh, yeah, absolutely. So I asked him multiple questions and he walked me through how it happened, how it led to that, all of it. I, she would say to him, you know, I'm concerned that this relationship is preventing you from finding yourself a proper, healthy woman. This was a concern she had. And he was like, I know, and I'm still looking. I just haven't found one yet. I need more data. That was one data point. So I need more data. But that with the sister brother incest, Even the word incest is invented by the church. So, and I'm looking at the 12 ethics and I'm going, well, based on the 12 ethics, there's nothing unethical about it. Everyone's consenting. Do you have to be mentally ill to get to that point? That's my question. Is there a mental illness prerequisite? Not in any of the cases I researched. Okay, that one case that she was not mentally healthy, but the other two cases, they were mentally healthy. So I'm looking at them going, more data is required. More data is required. More data is required. I don't know. I'm definitely not going to sit there and say yes or no. There's not enough data. And we have a whole lot of cultural bias here. So
Yes,
cultural
that is what I
bias needs
wanted
to go
to
away. The church and religious bias needs to go away. I got the 12 ethics, boom. And I'm looking at humanity as a whole. And that's my question. Mine is the pursuit of human nature. And I'm looking at human and I'm going, I can't answer. More data is required. As far as the abuse, her being beaten, that was traumatic. My question is, was she underage? Was she under mature? That's what I would like to know. My other flip side of that question is a woman getting pregnant out of marriage and then the solution being beating her, that's a problem. That is a problem. That's mental trauma in the making. So a girl gets pregnant for the concept of marital wedlock. That's trauma. I have a lot to say about marital wedlock. A lot to say about that. That in itself, there's no word for it, and there needs to be. I need to invent one. There is this concept of cultural or traditional prejudice that is mental illness. It's literally when prejudice becomes cultural prejudice. And that causes mental illness. I'm not going to make friends this year. I know it. I'm not going to be making friends this year. I know it. Cultural prejudice is something I see a lot of, where someone has, for instance, on the subject of, all right, here's a great example. I had a friend in high school. She was a Catholic and she was having premarital sex with her boyfriend. Now I'm going to say this before I continue the story. This is the same boyfriend that she went on to marry. They were married for 30 years. They are still married to this day and they have 3 children. Okay? When she started her sexual relationship with this boy, they were in high school, senior year of high school. They were both 18. She did not come to school for a week. Her parents beat her so badly that she needed help. She was my friend. She was my friend. And she was beaten so severely by her parents for premarital sex that she didn't come to school for a week. When she finally came back, she disowned her parents. She married her husband. And that concept of, I would rather beat you to the point of hospitalization than be loving, supportive, and forgiving. That is mental illness. That is mental illness. And this is where I respect you highly, Jared, but I want to show you something.
All right.
You asked me the question, girl having sex with her brother, consensual, is that mental illness? Parents beat her for being pregnant with her consent. That's not in question. And that is the backwards that I'm looking at going, why isn't this being talked about?
And
Why
the
have
other
we
one being
never,
muted.
say again?
And the other one being omitted.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's the questions that I'm saying. Here's the other question. I'm going to go back to that one question that gentleman asked me the other day. Is Menzies mental illness? And he explained his wife's mood, or not his wife's, a woman's mood swings.
Yes,
Yeah.
Salman. His name is Salman, a Muslim.
Oh, okay, yes, yes. Is it Solomon?
Salman.
Salmon. Okay, Salmon. So when I saw that question, the first thought I had is woman has mental illness with mood swing because she can't have both personalities present. Menzies just brings it out. But the fact that she has to have a mask, she has to have a mask because of the misogyny that she lives with. The misogyny is the mental illness.
Yes.
And I saw that and went, it's the misogyny that's the mental illness. And that's caused her mood swings. So that now when she has her period, she can't wear the mask anymore because that's what a period does, is it emphasizes the truth. So he sees the truth for the first time. And the question is this mental illness? No, your misogyny is. The misogyny is the mental illness. She's got a symptom of your misogyny. That's the answer. I don't know if it's his, but in a case where you have a man, a woman, she's got her menses, and then she's got these mood swings. And then the man says, oh, is that mental illness? No, no, no. Your misogyny is. Because if you're asking the question, is a woman's biological natural body mental illness, either you don't know what mental illness is or you don't know enough about biology. Biology has nothing to do with mental illness, not even a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what this comes down to. But we're so focused on the symptom. I blame the DSM-5. We're so focused on the symptom that we're not looking at the catalyst. So the question being asked, is the incest mental illness? Well, is it consensual? Okay, let's talk about the fact that they're being beaten for her pregnancy. That right there tells me what kind of a household they actually live in. That tells me more about the household than the incest. So she's living in a household where if this girl gets X, then she's going to get beaten and disowned. Oh, believe me, there's predecessors to that point. So what's going on before she's even sexually active that's taking place? Because that's what led her to have sex to begin with. So this cultural or traditional prejudice, we're passing down this prejudice. And we're so focused on the symptom of mental illness from the prejudice. Now, this is another really interesting thing. This is something I don't have a word for it yet. I just discovered this. And this is personal. I noticed my social anxiety. One of the problems I was having is this was opening up as I was teaching myself how to do exposure therapy and opening up. I noticed that I had a fear of X. I could not name X. It took me a lot of reverse engineering and dissecting, and this is X. I had a fear of other people's prejudice. I was afraid that people would judge me before listening to my story. Fear of another person's prejudice. This doesn't even have a name to it. This has no name. And when I started to ask people, everyone said, yeah, I'm afraid of that too. Why doesn't it have a name? That's what we're not thinking about. I believe that a lot of people have guilt, and what they really have is fear of prejudice, fear of other person's prejudice. So now we're changing our behavior to avoid prejudice. Isn't this fascinating? Why aren't we talking about this, psychologists? This is a fascinating topic. How much do we change our behavior because of our own fear of someone else's prejudice? That is a big, look, we're going to do a panel discussion on that. This is huge.
Yes.
So I like to go before the problem. What was the situation? How old are the children? That's my question also, is how old are these people?
They were still in high school. I believe they were not past 18. They were below 18.
Okay, were they above 12?
They were above 12. Probably 15, 16 there. 15,
15,
16.
16. Okay,
That's right.
15, 16. Education, I can tell you right there. I would say that that's just education. Like this is again going back to my sex talks. Oh, that's gonna be a great name for something, sex talks. Pretty sure it's been taken, but it says that's so 15, 16. See, that to me says immediately, oh, that's just a lack of education. Because when you're educated, you're focused on something else. You're not educated, you're not focused, then sexuality becomes the focal point. So yeah, it's education. I would say that's education. Now, so now it brings up the question, which I've already asked many times. Is uneducation a mental illness? That's fun. Is uneducation mental illness? I have a lot to say about this, but we won't get into it here. But that's a topic.
Indeed, it is a bit tricky, but I've gotten something.
Yeah. Yeah, I
That
have a lot. That's like a whole give me 4 hours of your time, and we're gonna have like a microphone. We're gonna have a Q&A session. That's gonna be so much fun to pull
So in
apart.
a nutshell, what we lack within our system is just education. And
Yeah, over and over.
and that is what we are studying for as community Gaia.
Yeah.
One of our great agenda is to educate the community, to
Yes.
inform the community of things of this nature.
Yeah. Yeah. Very much.
We need sensitization. We need to teach the masses on a lot of things, and it is all round. It touches
yeah.
every corner of life. So this is
Very
what
much.
yes, this is what I have personally. This is what I have in plan, and this is what I want to do, because everything that we have discussed since we began, we realized that most of them are connected to lack of proper education, everything. They narrow down to that.
Every time. Yes.
Narrows down to that. Be it parenting, it is just lack of education. They don't know what to do. And so again, next, we were also talking about the causes of the mental health. And in Kenya, these are what we listed. So I don't know whether they are in agreement with what you have over there. So first confirm to me that the types of mental health that I shared with you, are they in line with what you talk about over there?
No. In the United States, what we don't do
You
disorders.
just give me, you don't need to answer, you just give me a documentation, and then we compare and contrast, and then I share with the team. Because this is what they gave me to give you, and
All
then
right, gotcha. I got you. So I'm gonna be this is gonna get sticky, so I'll just get right down to it.
Right.
What the United States does, I had to throw it out. It was 100% incompatible with all of my work. It was 100% incompatible with me fixing my brain. I had to throw it all out. So when I did my work, my first thought was there's absolutely no mental illness. There's none. I call it behavioral defense. That's what I call it. Behavioral defense. It is self-preservation. That is what I call it. Behavioral defense. No disorder, throw it out. No one has a disorder. It's actually quite logical. Order means logic. Disorder means illogic. There's no illogic here. Trust me. This is clean logic. This is not, there's no disorder. It's all defense, behavioral defense. I then was able to group it and categorize it. And what I found was stages. So I already have this written up with all of the behavioral defenses I've identified. And I can send you that document. I'll probably rewrite it all up and clean it. All right, I'm going to send you my list of behavioral defenses. Yeah. And I'll map it out to show you, because there is your cognitive core, And then you've got this offshoot of behavioral defense, Now, when it breaks is going to determine which one you get. And then the progression determines the severity. So narcissism is actually story displacement, identity displacement. That's what I call it. Identity displacement happens here, here, and here. And it goes in 4 stages. There are 4 stages of identity displacement. That is what I noticed, was you can displace your identity. And this is done through a behavioral defense. There is story hopping. That's physics. I've noticed there's story hopping. And then there is multiple consciousness. That is multiple personality, but everyone's got multiple personalities. It's multiple consciousness. And that is a unique little creature. So yeah, I will definitely send that over to you. I'll send you my list of behavioral defenses.
All right, that would be great. I'll be very happy to receive it. So we are going to compare and contrast with what we have over here that we discuss. So the next thing that we discussed, we talked about mental health and what causes mental health. And these are the things that we listed. These are the work professionals, all right? The psychologists that we have on board. Number 1, they said child abuse, trauma, or neglect. That is a cause of mental health. Number 2, they said social isolation. Social isolation, that is stroke loneliness. They said this causes mental illness. And number 3, experiencing stigma, stroke discrimination. And number 4, we said social disadvantage. So social disadvantage, we talk about things like poverty, debt, etc., etc.
I missed that last one. I missed that last one. The phone broke up. What was it again? Social
disadvantage.
Disadvantage?
Yeah. Let me just do again. Number 1, I've said childhood abuse, trauma or neglect. And number 2, I've said social isolation, stroke loneliness. And then number 3, I've said experiencing stigma, stroke discrimination. And number 4, social disadvantage.
Okay.
That is in bracket poverty, stroke death.
Yeah,
And
that's
then
compliant to my work.
Number 5, bereavement, losing someone close to you.
Yep.
And then we have severe stroke, long-term stress. And
Yep.
then lastly, we have having a long-term physical health condition.
Yes, yeah. I've done a lot of talk to Dr. Daniel about that one. Yeah.
So you that those are the causes of mental illness. So you will check our list. If there's something that we have omitted, you can incorporate it in our list. All right. And so as well there in that we also would like to receive your document.
Oh yeah.
On this, so that when we shall be discussing in details, we don't miss your work. Because remember, this is all of your work, and we don't want to be outside what you stand for. All right.
Yeah, this is a beautiful list. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So your list here, the one you just gave me, is compatible with my work 100%. It's clean.
Right.
There's a couple overlaps with the mathematical grouping, so I'll condense it and show you the math on it. But yeah, this is a clean list, and it's 100% compatible with my work, and I'll show you the breakdown. So it's just an order of operations, which happens in what order and why. Very clean, very simple. And that's really all you need. That is all you need. When psychology is very simple. Once it's in the right order and you have the right groupings, it's very simple and clean. This is beautiful. Yeah. And also, here's an assignment for you. Take the 12 ethics and compare the 12 ethics to the list of abuse you just gave me and see which ethics are being violated.
Okay,
would do
I'm
that as
just
an
going to
entire class. I would do that as an entire class. That would be one of my classes is, all right, what are the top abuses? What are you noticing for mental illness? Now let's take a look at the 12 ethics and see which ethics are being violated. And I can already tell you which ones. Like I know which ethics are being violated. So that's the exercise. You violate the 12 ethics, you're gonna get mental illness.
Yes. Every mental illness you told me, I remember, that comes as a result of violating the ethics. All of them. You violate, and I think the mental health issue is bound to take place.
Yes. Every time. Yeah.
Every time. So the last question, the very last, we discussed with you that parents are supposed to create a room for their children to decide on what they want to be in life. For example, if they're going to school, the options should be presented to them, and then they choose without being coerced on what they should be in life. If one wants to be a teacher, they should be given a room to be. If one wants to be a lawyer, they should be allowed to train in that direction because that is their own passion. But the question arises every time I'm having a session with parents. There was a day I was in Nyaribo High School, parents day. I don't know whether you have parents day in the US, where parents are invited to school so they discuss affairs of the school. During the parents' day session, we were discussing similar things, but one of the parents came with an objection, and this an objection also came into action during our last week meeting, where one of the professionals says that this question has been arising every moment they have session with parents, and that as a parent, as you are with your daughter, there are a lot of things that you know in regards to life that your daughter does not know. There are professions that you know that somehow, because in Africa we are trained to get a job, that is 100%. We are not trained to get knowledge in Africa system. And I remember I told you sometimes back. So as a parent, you know that if my daughter is trained in this direction, she might not get a job. She might end up being wasted. You have that knowledge, you have that experience, because there are a lot of things that you've seen in life as a parent. So in that regard, when is your experience limited? Because on the other side, we have discussed that they are supposed to be allowed. And you can allow your child and you see her going into the wrong direction. Are you supposed to tell her that, no, I want you to choose another course. I want you to choose another direction. This particular profession that you've chosen, all the people that I've seen going that direction have failed. So please, I want you to reconsider your options. Is this correct or wrong? I don't know whether I made sense.
It's wrong. Wrong.
I knew you will say.
I'm building a dream school. It's wrong. And we're going to prove it.
All right.
Do I need to get my soapbox? Should I get my soapbox and I go on this whole, I got a speech prepared. Oh, I have so much to say on this one. Oh, I have so much to say. I am going to quote Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins said this about wealth and poverty, and it hit me so hard that I quote him now. He chose a career, and his mother decided she was going to advise him. And he said, "Mom, I love you, but you are poor. You don't know. If you knew, you would be rich. You cannot tell me how to be rich because you've never been rich. You are a poor woman and you don't know anything about anything outside of being a poor woman. You are not qualified to teach me about wealth. So I'm going to go find someone who can. Now, I love you, but you cannot help me here because you are a poor woman. That hit me so hard. Hard. There is a poverty box. If you are inside the poverty box, shut up. Shut up. You don't know. You're in the poverty box. The people who are on the outside, they have the answers. Guess what? You're a student inside the poverty box. Your child is going, I don't want to be in the poverty box. How dare you? Do you want your child to stay in the poverty box? Maybe you shouldn't be the teacher if you're in the poverty box, because you're just going to teach them how to be poor. And it starts with you telling them you need to go get a job. No, you say no to the poverty box. Boom, Community Gaia. That's gonna be our thing. No, I am huge on free the dreams, freedom. Oh no, this is my topic. This is why I have all of this. No, if one of the things that I'm talking to about with my friend, this is a gentleman who's founder of the Billionaires Club, and he has a dream of creating 1,000 billionaires in the year 2025. He sent me a whole pitch deck. He sent me all the documentation. And I said, well, I'll tell you what I'm doing over here. I'm building Community Gaia where I'm doing education and mental health. Can I talk to you about how to make billionaires? So, do you want him to stay in the poverty box? Or do I want to go ask this gentleman if he can teach me how to make billionaires? You tell me, what do you want? Because I'm about to go ask a guy who knows. And then we're going to put it right into our educational system because he knows. Because I listened to Tony Robbins. I found myself a mentor. And that's it right there. If you, I just wrote an article this morning on this called The Wooden Boy Oasis. Wooden boys are the people who are students and they think they're teachers. And this is the problem parents have. They're scared. You have no business parenting out of fear. My daughter said to me, I want to be a fashion designer when I grow up. Believe me, I did not jump for joy, but that's not my decision to make. In fact, despite that, I nourished her and said, you know, you want to be a fashion designer. And I left my sewing books out for her. And I said, you know, because that's her. It is absolutely a mental illness to project your fears onto your children, especially if you're in a poverty box. That's part of my speech. More to come on that. That's kind of sampler of the
fear, projecting your fear into the life of your children.
Yeah, and that's what that is. That is 100% what that is. You're afraid. You're afraid for your child. You got to keep that in check. That's why parents need to go to this to learn. Because
that is a lesson. That is
it is a lesson. It is a lesson. You do not project your fears onto your children. You do not. That is what causes their mental illness. You project your fear onto your
children. My failure is not the failure of my children. So when it happens that I failed, I shouldn't bring that perception to my child that if you hit that place, you're going to reach.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's it. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, there's going to be a few topics you bring up, and I'm just going to go completely nuts, by the way. And that's one of them. You want to talk about dreams? Oh, I'm off. That's like one of my passion topics is dreams.
This is fantastic. This is great. I love the way you answer that question. Really
it's wrong. No science, just it's wrong.
You can't answer that if you're not professional. This, if you don't have knowledge and understanding of psychology, you can't answer this question.
Yeah.
Very process that I've never had it. So this is a top notch. And from today, whenever I encounter this question, I have the answer. But you're not supposed to project your fear into the direction of your children. Let them
Right.
go.
Yes.
They're more equipped to tackle what you don't tackle. So that is,
Yep.
I don't know what made us believe that what you failed, obviously your children will fail.
Exactly.
Sometimes your
Exactly. Yeah, it's like we're handing our children failure recipes. I'm going to call that. We're going to write that down. Failure recipes. It's like I got a failure recipe here. Let me give it to you. The first thing I did for my failure recipe is I didn't follow my dreams. That's a failure recipe. Don't follow your dreams. I'm going to write this down. This is going to be like a parody thing I do. Don't follow your dreams. That's the failure recipe. There you go. Do what I did to keep me poor. Yes, repeat my poor behavior. Repeat my poor behavior. That is my failure recipe. Repeat my poverty behavior. You know, this is really insightful. So yeah, I'm going to have fun with my failure recipe. And this is what parents do. They give their children failure recipes. And then you can be just like your parent too. And it's we have to make fun of this for ourselves because we've all I did this. And then I realized what I was doing and I went, "Oh no, you don't, Anna." I knew I had mental illness and I busted my ass to keep it off of my children. And when I realized I was failing, I busted my ass to get better. It took me 3 children to perfect this because I realized I was hurting my children because I wasn't taking care of myself.
Yes.
And that's it. You know, I'm having a debate right now with one of my dear friends, Justin. We're going to be hearing a lot about Justin. He is on this whole love is all you need. And he's John Lennoning me over here. And he's like, unconditional love. And I'm over here going, God, it feels like I'm in a Star Trek episode where he is McCoy and I'm Spock. If that's what it feels like. And I'm going, love is not enough. Love is like electrical fire. You can have electricity and you can have fire and you can have an electrical fire. You really want the electricity inside the wire and you really want the fire inside the fire pit. You don't want your house burning down from an electrical fire. This is love. Most people use love like an electrical fire and they're burning their house down. This is too much love. This is love without logic. You need logic. You need wisdom. Because if you don't, you're going to have an electrical fire. Logic and wisdom is the wire that contains the electricity, is the stonework that contains the fire. Because unchecked, love goes all over the place. And I'm going to prove it. Every parent loves their child. Every parent loves their child. How are we all doing? We're all good parents, right? Our children are all wealthy, prosperous, and mentally healthy, right? I do believe the average is 98% of mental illness. Oh, that's a whole lot of love. If love is all you needed, then there would be no mental illness. Love is not enough. You must have wisdom. So yeah, it's education is what saves the day.
Yes. That is not very significant. So we have exhausted our questions. Those were what we covered in our midweek meeting. And we have captured responses and also the video. I know we are going to access them in the YouTube. And then I'm going to share it along in the group. And
Yeah, that works.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that kind of detailed information. This was timely, and I just appreciate you so much. This is a learning ground for me, and I'm not taking it for granted. Every moment we are having a meeting, I know that it is a room for me to study. and I have to take down my 2 notebooks. I'm taking other notes here and other notes on the other side. So there is where I have the responses here and where I have the vocabularies here and what I need to go and research. So I'm so very excited. Meeting is just something that I can't just take lightly. I can't take it
Yeah.
lightly. Yeah. Yes, I can take it lightly.
Yeah, I greatly appreciate it. I'm really starting to, I'm enjoying it. I'm having a blast. I could do these Q&A panel discussions all day long. And there's quite a few here. When we look at it, what I see is a round table where this is very much philosophy. Philosophers would sit around, find a topic that needs dissection. And this is what we would do is we would use reverse engineering and philosophy with exploratory dialogue to go through the process and analyze. And that's what we are going to have to do with some of these topics. And that's exactly what we need. We need the right people to sit down and analyze these topics and really start to pull them apart and analyze. What's the ethics? What is the ethics? Let's question humanity. Let's question our culture. And that's exactly it. We're asking ourselves some very difficult questions. I'm fine with it. Wherever there's taboo, I go, yay, let's discuss. So I'm all over that. I'm very comfortable with that. So yeah. Yeah, and I'm going to give you a list of like power, passion words where you say them, and I guarantee you're going to get a whole soapbox speech out of me. Think the video froze.